Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. On this episode, we have Matt Shade, who is an AT, but has moved into the world of financial planning and management. I've seen Matt pop up on a few other podcasts, so if you've listened to those, hopefully we cover something a little bit different with that, but I took a lot away from this, not being overly well versed in financial management of my own personal stuff as well. So, really, a lot of good information here, especially for young professionals coming out, getting that first job. I still remember selecting things, not entirely understanding what they meant or how to best utilize them. Have gotten much better with that in my career, but it's been 10 years and so hopefully this can help people make really good decisions early on that fit their life, or make some adjustments as they need to as they keep going. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Can't thank them enough. There's so many unique things coming out from Mueller. Their initiative with Corey Stringer Institute, with Innovate, and donating exertional heat illness equipment to schools as they become staffed with athletic trainers, and some other really unique offerings that they're going to be coming that are just trying to make what we do easier and make it as convenient as possible. So please check them out. Without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. We are on with Matt Shade, who is an athletic trainer but has moved into the world of finance, which just talking off air, there's so many nuances and things we can go to. I'm looking forward to having these conversations, but I had seen Matt kind of popping up on the internet all over the place, hadn't had a chance to reach out yet, but then we interviewed Mike Kahn in the industrial setting, and he help make this connection. So this was the perfect opportunity to actually get on and have the discussion. And so before we get into it, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. He's done quite a bit in his career, just from what I was looking at from working in collegiate setting, secondary setting, position setting, and I believe you were an AD at a high school for a period of time to
That's
now
correct.
doing what you're doing now. So with that, I will turn it over to you to kind of fill in your background, and then we'll jump into kind of talking financials and what that means for the athletic training profession.
Yeah, and thanks for the introduction, Joel, and thanks for having me on. Always appreciate seeing other athletic trainers giving back to the profession and providing this type of education that we typically don't get in our schooling. So, my career, people often ask, how did you get to finance from athletic training? And my journey started back in 2006. I finished in that summer. Not only did I finish my master's degree, but I also got my first job, which was a 1099 employee position. I got married and bought my first house, all within about 3 months. And to everyone on the outside, it was like, hey, man, this guy's life is right on track. But it was really the beginning of financial derailment. And what happened was we got stuck in a horrible mortgage. 2006, they were giving mortgages out. I didn't have 2 years of tax returns. Didn't know what I didn't know going into the mortgage situation at the age of 23. And my wife and I, we got stuck in a 100% interest only mortgage for 10 years. And we were led to believe you'll be fine in 2 years. Just go ahead and refinance. The market's going up. You'll be great. Well, for those of you around in 2008, that's when the housing market completely crashed. So now were we not only paying 100% interest only, we were upside down on the mortgage. I couldn't get out. So at the time I was working as a secondary school athletic trainer, 1099 contract. And I felt my only way out was to now chase the dollar, try to find another job that was going to pay me more, that I could get out of the situation. So started exploring, came across a startup company, and they were going to give me a title of the sports medicine manager. I built 3 high school athletic training contracts. But what I didn't know was the operating agreements, buy sell agreements. I was like, hey, I'm just getting paid more and I'm doing sports medicine. I should be fine. Well, about 3 months into the job, I woke up on a Friday morning and I didn't receive a paycheck. And I called the owner of the company and I said, hey, I don't know if this was a mistake. I didn't get paid today. And he's like, oh, sorry, Matt, meant to give you a heads up, going through some growing pains. And I'll fast forward this story, but in the end, he was running 2 different companies, basically robbing Peter to pay Paul, shifting funds around. And I ended up going 3 months, no pay, was paying my own staff out of my own pocket, went further into debt. So I was like, well, I got to do what I got to do. So I chased the dollar again, went back to more of a traditional type setting, working with an orthopedic physician as a physician extender, went on, became a sports medicine supervisor. My master's degree was in sports management, so worked my way up into an athletic director role. And now you fast forward from 2009 to 2015, 6 years, got out of the mortgage situation, got my, financial footing again, got out of the debt that I was in. Life was good. And then one morning I was on cafeteria duty, and just words of wisdom. If you ever sign a contract and says other duties as assigned, make sure cafeteria duty is not on there. But I was on cafeteria duty, my phone rang, didn't recognize the number, and I picked it up. Here it was a law firm for a physician I worked for in 2012. And I had never seen the patient. The patient was a direct admit to the hospital, but the physician I worked for did the surgery. Unfortunately, the patient passed away. And I had simply, in the patient's chart, I'd received one phone call that I returned a phone call. And this is for athletic trainers. Documentation is key. What saved me from the case was I had a Post-it note that said left voice message, go to ER immediately. And I dated it, timed it, and put my initials on it. So that dropped me from the case. But on that one phone call, I was like, I'm back to it. Am I going to lose everything that I've worked for? And at that point, I realized that this is the stuff that we're not taught in school. And going through working for different companies, being a sports medicine supervisor, the most financial discussions we have is you walk into the HR department, they hand you a folder and say, here's your benefits. Let us know what you want to sign up for, and turn it back in a few days. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it my calling to go educate athletic trainers on how to make good financial decisions, how to be financially educated. And if they want to implement strategies with me, fine. If they want to go to another financial professional and implement strategies, that's fine too. But at least I can provide the education.
Wow, that's a heck of a background, and thanks for sharing the stories of the trials and tribulations along the way. I know I've almost run into issues myself, like signing up for my HMO, that it was with the hospital I wanted, but it was a different region, not the region that I was in, even though they list all the regions you can be in because it was within a state system, which they could have made it simpler, but chose not to because obviously they don't know where you live either. But yeah, I've almost run into that and then had to write my sob story letter to the people to get it changed before I started getting medical bills that I shouldn't have been getting. So I hear you there. It's easy to overlook.
It is lots of terms and conditions.
Right.
It's all about the terms and conditions.
So, man, I just got a whole bunch more questions to ask you based on just all the story you got, but we'll dive into those after we get to a couple of these. We were talking off air, and let's maybe start back at the beginning. That first job out of grad school. Now a lot of people, MSAT programs or wherever they're coming out of. We were talking that my program director said, you got to take a look at the entirety of the job. Like $5,000 in salary could be completely not worth it compared to $5 a month in health care benefits, or if that's what you're paying in, or they're going to match to a higher percentage of your retirement depending on what you want to do with that. I would love your take on what maybe advice you would give for somebody that's looking for that first job, other than all of them should probably pay higher than they are, but that's probably an argument for another day. If there's something that people can be paying attention to try and maximize that and make, in essence, the quote right decision.
Yeah, and that's a loaded question because
Yeah.
there's so many variables, right?
Sure.
I do a whole episode on this topic alone. Um, my first job, I had two offers on the table. One was at a Division III school, and it was going to pay $25,000. The other was 1099 secondary school, and it was going to pay 32,000 for the year.
Yep.
So on paper, I was like, all right, that's $7,000 difference. I also looked at the commute times. The D3 school was about an hour away. The high school was about 15 minutes away. So I'm like, right, gas time and all that, travel time, probably save money. But where you sacrifice is, to your point, on the retirement plans. Sometimes the W-2 employers are going to offer you a match, and that's free money on the retirement. And it all depends on what stage you're at in your life too. That 3% match, or 6%, whatever it is, it's great. But also you have to keep in mind, well, I really can't touch that money anyway until I'm 59 and a half without paying penalties and,
Sure.
taxes, all that kind of stuff. So it's also a decision of how soon am I going to need this money? That extra money that's being given to me, when do I need it? And it's really understanding your cash flow and cash flow hierarchy. And that's individual to individual. It can vary greatly, and also depends on where you're living, the cost of living in the area. Other benefits that come with the W-2, a lot of times there's a small life insurance policy, long-term disability, short-term disability. Maybe they cover continuing education for yourself. So there could be a lot of perks built into it, where if you go to 1099, it's like, all right, I'm going to have to supplement that myself.
Yep.
On the flip side, 1099s, there's tax advantages. You can write off more on taxes and, gas mileage, cell phones. Even if you have an office space in your house that's designated as office space, you can use that. So a lot of factors to consider and to weigh out. And the one thing that I always encourage professionals, don't look at just the numbers, because there's also that emotional, what are your career goals? What lifestyle do you want? And, really think about that. Is it a stepping stone? Is it where you want to sit down and plant yourself for a long period of time? And all that has to be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important. The next question you kind of answered, but do you see from yours, maybe in your career now, or, I'm 35, have our first kid a couple of years ago, got another one on the way. Do you see, are there potentially benefits that could potentially make up for a lesser salary, given contextual aspects of your life? I know I made the decision of looking at, high deductible insurance plans when I was single. Didn't go to the doctor, had no long-standing things, and figured if anything bad was going to happen, I was going to pay a bunch of money anyway. So might as well, build up a health savings account, because that was part of the deal as well. Versus as soon as we got married and we're planning on having our first child, we quickly switched back over to a more traditional plan, just because we knew we were going to end up at the doctor quite a bit, just by the nature of that. So any thoughts or insight on those type of things?
Yeah, when those type of decisions, it's funny how life changes, and with finances, you constantly have to change. So many people, I think, go in with the mentality of, oh, I can just set it and forget it.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, athletes. We work with athletes every day. We know day in and day out, they have to go, on their workout programs. There's going to be areas where they make great improvements, and then they're going to plateau a little bit, and then they may have an injury or a little setback, and it's constantly changing. Finances is the same thing. And, to your experience on health insurance, it's a big one. And it comes down to so many of us, especially athletic trainers, where, overpaid or underpaid, overworked, right? Overworked, underpaid. And, every dollar we have a scarcity mindset almost. And so we immediately think of cost. And sometimes we have to transition that mindset of we can't focus just on the cost, but we have to look at the value that it's providing. And in your case, you get married, you have kids, there's more value to you. Yes, it's going to cost you more, but there's more value being able to transfer that risk, knowing that, hey, there's people that are dependent on me. If they have to go to the hospital, and what if all three of us, COVID, for instance, so many of
Sure.
us experienced COVID recently. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just multiple visits, all of a sudden it adds up. And you're like, okay, I'm actually going to be paying more now. So I'd rather transfer the risk. I'm going to take out a better insurance policy, transfer that to the insurance provider. And yeah, it's going to cost me a little bit more per month, but there's value there. I can sleep at night. I know my family's going to be taken care of. And in the event we have high medical bills, we can have everything covered. The same holds true. I'm a big component of your income is your most valuable asset. And when you're young and just getting started, we don't really think about that. But then as you start to, settle down, have a family, and progress, it becomes even more and more valuable. And as athletic trainers, many of us come out with student loan debt, big amounts of that. And I related to like car insurance. Here in PA, you're required to have car insurance if you buy a car. You can't drive off the lot. That car in value goes down from the time you drive it off the lot, right? But your income, your ability to earn income as an athletic trainer from day one is only going up. And over 30, 40 years, it's an increasing asset. So to spend a little bit of money of cost to protect it, through your disability insurance, making sure you have as much coverage in place as you can, your professional liability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a business owner, there's general liability, umbrella insurance. As you start, the family, the life insurance, you want to make sure that economically you're keeping every dollar that you deserve. You've worked hard to become an athletic trainer, you've earned that certification, you deserve to get paid out regardless of what happens in life outside of, the job.
I think that is so important and well said. Just to kind of bring that about where, and is it cliche to say it's all looking at it as that investment, in yourself to protect it, versus just kind of waving off that maybe you don't need it. Because I know there's always arguments. Do you need to get every warranty on every piece of electronic equipment you buy? Maybe not, but this is obviously a little different.
Yeah, and it's funny because you talk about that, like you buy a cell phone. How many of us buy insurance on the cell phone? We buy, you buy all the stuff, and those are depreciating assets.
Right.
Those are what, we are bombarded with day in and day out to make, the warranties and all this. But most of that stuff is going to lose value. But your income and your ability to generate income is by far your most valuable asset. But we don't talk about how we can protect it and make sure that we can keep as much money on our balance sheet as possible.
Do you have some this is, again, they're all very broad questions, so I apologize for that in advance.
That's okay.
Like a top tips or whatever to protect it. We've talked a little bit about, looking at, does life insurance plans get included, as part of your employment, and or do you get one outside of it, or the disability policies, if something were to happen, to be able to still be able to turn those on to get income. I didn't fully realize that that's how it works in a lot of places with maternity leave, that you're actually being put on short-term disability for that. It's not just your company handing you, in essence, vacation to do that. That was I just never had a reason to know it until now, but was something I learned. And now we've gotten a little bit more creative with baby number 2 coming in, how to get a full leave and still make sure that we're not financially hurting after it.
Yeah. With, so, since you start talking about the disability, we'll go down that road.
Sure.
So with disability, a lot of times if you're a W-2 employee, a lot of employers will offer you short-term and long-term disability. The long-term disability, what you want to read is how much coverage do you get with that if you had to go out on a long-term disability claim. Now, the average statistic right now in the U.S., average long-term disability is about it's like 2.4 years is average. So ask yourself, how long can I go 2 years without any income? Now, your employer will, in their group benefits, it often specifies a percentage. It might be 50%, 60%. If you work for a school system, it might be up to 66 and 2/3% of your income. But what you have to keep in mind is that benefit. So let's say you go out on a claim, you make, I'm just gonna use round numbers, you make $4,000 a month. So the company's gonna pay you 2,000 while you're out, but now that 2,000 is gonna be taxed. So now you're dropping down even less. Now, if you're on a disability, chances are you have more medical bills. You're seeing the doctors more, and you have to ask yourself, can I live off of that?
Yep.
What does that do to me financially if I don't have that? So there's usually, it's an individual plan that you take out to supplement that and close that gap between the 50 or 60% and 100.
Sure.
Narrow that gap. And that benefit money on an individual plan is not taxed. So when you get that benefit, it now gets you closer to that $4,000 a month,
right,
that you can live off of. It's about buying yourself time. But again, what you have to take into consideration is, when I look at short-term and long-term disability, most short-term is about 3 months at the max. So our goal is to work with our clients to say, hey, can we get you 3 months living expenses, liquid money that you have as a safety net, that you could sustain a short-term disability, but let's transfer that risk for the long-term disability. And most of the time, I've worked with a lot of different providers. I'm brokered with over 35 different insurance companies. And the big thing that I focus on with athletic trainers is we want to make sure that you have what's called true own occupation. And there's even group benefits does not have those terms and conditions in it. So what they say is, well, Joel, sorry, you can't work as an athletic trainer, but you are able to go be a greeter at Walmart. So because you can earn income, we're not going to pay out the claim because you can go do another occupation.
Sure.
What I look for is, especially medical professionals, athletic trainers, physical therapists, doctors. I want true own occupation. So if you can't work as an athletic trainer, you can still earn that income. If you have to go out on a disability claim, you can still go, you can go teach, you can go do something else, make that income, but you're still gaining that other salary because you can't work as an athletic trainer. So there's very few insurance companies that do classify and provide true own occupation for athletic trainers. And I've gone to battle with some because they didn't even recognize us as an occupation class. Shocking, right? And it's like, he goes like, what's the difference? You'll insure physician assistants, you'll insure physical therapists. Why not an athletic trainer? And again, that's just advocacy for the profession, building awareness, because there's people out there on the insurance end that they don't even understand what we do. So,
right.
Yeah.
Insurance and how that can all be. We're not recognized to bill for it. We're not recognized that they'll cover us as a profession. It never seems to end.
Yep.
Just going back again to, we're not taught a lot of this stuff. Finance can be kind of this elephant in the room that you should know about it, but it's confusing to know about it. And again, I understand, and for everybody listening, everything is situational. But in terms of looking at just savings and general recommendations, because again, and maybe this would tie into too, some people come out with way more student loan debt than other people. Your GA position, where maybe you got a stipend to not have to necessarily take out a lot of loans, to get through school, but maybe you took out some just to not have to live, with 6 roommates in a 4-bedroom place type of a thing. But looking at that, I know for me, I always tried to put some money away, whether that was the right idea. Some is good, but would have made more sense to pay down some debt. I know that
was a big eye opener to me. I saw what I was paying in principal versus interest on some student loans, and about threw my computer across the room, and then just decided every like spare cent that I could afford was just going to go to knocking that down, without leaving me hanging. But
Hmm.
um, that
Yeah.
was, it worked for me, and I was thankfully had the ability to do that, which I understand not everybody does. But just if some general thoughts on saving, especially early on in your career, with retirement, do you have to open another IRA for yourself if you're getting some retirement from your employer, so on and so forth?
Yeah, getting started is always the hardest because society sets us up almost behind the eight ball right from the start. You come out of
Sure.
college, and even if you don't have, if you were fortunate enough to get a scholarship or your family paid for your schooling, but from day one, it's all right. Well, I have to find a place to live. I need a car to get me to and from work. Cell phone, and it's like I need all this stuff to get started, but I haven't even earned the first paycheck yet. So you're signing yourself up for these obligations and
Mm-hmm.
payment, and throw in there if you do have student loans, you come out, it's like, all right, I gotta start paying these student loans back. And so all of a sudden our mindset is, hey, we're just giving money to everyone else except for paying ourselves first.
Sure.
And it's, again, it comes down to the cash flow hierarchy. And I always recommend really having a firm grasp on your budget right from the start, and you know don't overcommit too early. And a lot of times it takes small steps to begin building. Athletic trainers were not used to having thousands of dollars in the bank account, but how would it feel if you did have thousands of dollars? And most of us will go ahead and overpay on student loans, credit card debt right away because we hear that so often, and mathematically, yes, it does make sense that the faster you pay off debt, you save on the interest, and then you can redirect those dollars elsewhere. But what we need to be very careful of is if we go too aggressive and we don't leave enough liquid cash for ourselves and we're not paying ourselves, it's almost like if you prioritize debt today, you don't have to prioritize debt tomorrow because life's going to happen. There's
Mm-hmm.
cars going to break down. You take your car in the shop and you're lucky to get out of there without a $600, $800 bill.
Sure.
You don't have the cash to pay for it. Well, now I'm just going right back into debt. I have to put that on the credit card, and I just paid off, you know, so much money on that, throwing extra payments to that or paying extra towards my student loans. So sometimes it makes sense to delay, that the retirement contributions, maybe paying off debt, buy yourself like 6 months, 8 months, build up a cushion first that you're comfortable with. And from there, then start attacking, different goals and objectives. So once you have cash flow and you're able to direct the dollars where you want it to go, there's so much less stress for you. There's less anxiety. You don't feel that need of, oh, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And sometimes it just takes a discipline, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months to save like crazy, build a little cushion, and then decide, okay, what's going to be my next step to get aggressive at achieving my other goals.
I think that sounds really good because have you, your recommendation, I've heard some people 3 months, you kind of want 3 months of a cushion. Like if you can figure out, is it 3 months of what your paycheck is or whatever, so that if the bottom did drop out for some reason, you at least bought yourself some time, or, the
Yeah.
place you were working for went under and you're no longer getting a paycheck. General ideas or recommendations there.
Yeah, it comes individual situation on
Sure.
what you're comfortable with. Usually, what we try to stress with our clients is, let's start off, depending on where you're at. Let's get $1,000 in the bank. Let's see how that feels for you. And then that 3 months is our next target date.
Okay.
And then from there, we say, hey, how much liquid cash do you feel comfortable having 3 months living expenses there in the bank account? Or do you feel like, if I do go try to save 4 or 5 months, that money's kind of, by not being invested or not working for me elsewhere, do I want that
Sure.
to start working for me? And there's people out there like, no, you know what? I feel more comfortable 6 months. And it's based on my job or based on a prior experience that they had. I want
Yeah.
6 months. Some people are a year. I want a year of liquidity there. And so it's just really understanding, what your goals, what your concerns are, what your prior experiences are with money. And then when you save beyond that, once you have that 3 months, 6 month savings, it's then identifying, does it make sense, to go into investment accounts that are liquid? Do we put it away for the long term for retirement?
Sure.
And what's next on the agenda? And are you contributing to a retirement plan already? Are you not? And, coming up with strategies, because again, two different conversations. There's the accumulation years. Like I'm 38. And how old did you say you were, Joel?
35.
35. So, right now we're in the accumulation years. We're trying to grow our money, get to retirement.
Yep.
But we also have to begin strategizing. What are the distribution years going to look like? Is all my money in one bucket? Is all of it exposed to, the market?
Right.
And when you look at even right now, like the economy's been crazy, stock market's been all over the place.
Right.
So what if we were just entering retirement in January and we're like, we have to pull out, but the market has tanked. I don't want to pull out of the market when the market's down, but I need money to live on. So you have to strategize all along and have different buckets so that when the stuff that's outside of our control happens, we have options and we have flexibility to say, okay, I can pull from this bucket. I'm going to buy myself time. I'm going to let that bucket recover. And again, most of the time people think, oh, I'm just going to contribute to my 403B, my 401k plan, and I'm good.
Yep.
I'm set up for retirement. And it's not the case.
That's an important point, and this is going to sound like me asking for personal advice, which it kind of is. But just in terms of, you kind of mentioned, the differences in liquid type accounts where you can get access to that money versus, going into a retirement account. And yes, you can still get access to that money, but you're going to get crushed underneath, taxes and everything like that. But if people wanted to maybe have their money do a little bit of work for them, but still have it liquid, is there any really good option out there? Savings account rates, for as long as I've been alive, I'm pretty sure sucked. I've threw some money in a money market. The rate was a little better, then it's been bad and hasn't really done anything since then. So I think it makes me like $6 a month, or and compound interest is supposed to be what saves you, but apparently not in those. Anything that you would maybe recommend for somebody that's maybe looking to try and do a little saving but still have access to that, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure. So most of us, when we fill out our retirement plans at work, we fill out a risk tolerance questionnaire.
Yep.
Right. And then, so that determines, are you aggressive? Are you conservative? Where do you fall on the spectrum and what type of accounts that money's invested in? Same hold true, on just regular investing. To your point, cash, it's great. It's liquid. It's there. You can access it within minutes. You can go to an ATM, pull cash out, have it. Downfall with that is you're exposed to inflation risk. So right now, like our dollars in the bank it's not keeping up with inflation. You look at inflation this year, it's crazy. So you're in essence losing a little bit of money.
Yep.
But you have the liquidity for the day to day. We call it a brokerage account on the investment side. And it's very similar to your 401k, 403bs, where it's a portfolio. You can select a whole bunch of different funds. And in that type of investment account, though, you can, if you need access to it, you can get it within 3 to 5 business days, generally speaking. Yep. So it's in the markets investing. And so people who are, maybe they have a goal to buy a house in 5 to 7 years and they want to save up, they're putting that money into a brokerage account. And based on your risk tolerance, depends on what type of portfolio it's put in and how it's being invested. Other places, people don't think about it, but and unfortunately it has a bad rap in the industry, but cash value life insurance. And there's good products and there's bad products when it comes to cash value life insurance. But there are some products out there where, the dividend rates right now are anywhere from 4 or 5%, not correlated to the market. You have guaranteed growth. You can borrow against it. kind of become your own bank, plus have a life insurance in place for yourself. Where you have to be tricky, or where you have to be mindful, because it can get tricky, is some life insurance companies will blend in. It'll be called like a universal or a variable whole life policy. That money's actually exposed in the stock market. And my personal belief is, nope, if I want money out of the market, I'm keeping it out of the market. I'm not going to try to blend the two.
Sure.
That's my own personal philosophy.
Oh, that makes sense.
But so there's opportunities there. And again, like that type of strategy, though, it takes you about 7-8 years before to really kick off. So if you need the funds right away, it's probably not the right vehicle for you.
Sure.
But if you're like, okay, I want something for like 10 to 20 years out, I use mine. It's my kids' college savings plan, to be honest with you. I'm dropping money into that, and then I'm just going to use that to pay for their college education. So I'm using the same dollar to accomplish two different tasks. I have life insurance on myself, but I'm gonna have cash value there for my kids that I can pull out.
Sounds like a solid 2-for-1.
Yeah, why not, man? Maximize the dollar.
Right.
So those are a couple of options, and then you have your IRAs, Roth IRAs. But again, that's long-term money. That's money that
Right.
you're willing to say, hey, I'm not going to touch this for until I get to retirement. And the long-term planning strategy. And a lot of times too, you just have to be mindful if you need that money or know you're going to need that money in a relatively short period of time. You don't want to expose it to as much risk. You don't want to get as aggressive when you're investing it, but you want to take advantage of some upside potential if you can.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Again, kind of a very broad and overarching, but as you referenced, you work with athletic trainers and physical therapists, doctors and whatnot. Within that kind of realm, obviously we're talking more specific to ATs. I'm not sure how big a portion of your clients they are, but what would you say is some of their most overlooked or maybe the biggest misconceptions that the profession has around finances?
It's first and foremost, I think they worry about cost, right? What's this going to cost me?
Sure.
It's the first biggest concern. And just like we're doing today, it's a conversation. And a lot of times when you meet with financial professionals, the majority of us, you can do fee-based planning where there's a fee to sit down and have a conversation. My philosophy is I'm going to provide the education. It doesn't cost you anything. And at the end of the day, if you're willing to open up and really understanding every aspect of your financial world, so many times we have tunnel vision, right? You have that next goal in mind. All right, I just want to talk investing. I just want to talk buying a house or buying a car, whatever it is. But it's really getting organized and laying out your finances, knowing every aspect. And it's no different than us going to a doctor. And any specialist that you see, they're going to do a health history. They're going to take your vitals. They're going to understand the baseline of you. And when it comes to financial decisions, whoever you work with, you need to make sure that they understand every aspect of your financial world, because you can't provide a good recommendation that makes sense. Because if you're transferring $1 anywhere on that budget sheet, there's another area that's going to be impacted. So it takes time to build that out. Our system it's usually 2 to 3 meetings just to get organized, make sure we're all on the same page. We have the goals and everything listed out, and have as much data, the objective data in front of us that we can then say, okay, this is probably your next logical step to take. And there's also, it's a process. It's one step at a time. It's hard to accomplish a lot of different tasks all at the same time. And you just have to break it down and understand, all right, what are the red flags that need addressed today? What are things that I can, put off for a little bit? And then what are things I don't really need to worry about for, a couple years?
This is going to be kind of a loaded question as you are a financial professional. But it's one I went through personally myself, read some financial books, found it interesting, kind of looked at some different things. It gets for me, it got overwhelming and confusing relatively quickly on which way you should go. Thought I was doing a decent job. Wasn't sure, because a lot of these financial books are saying, hey, you don't need a financial planner. They're just taking money out of your bottom line. And, is it really worth it? My now wife had a financial planner, was doing well by them. I've had another, buddies go into financial planning, and we now work with one now who kind of laid out, I believe, a similar way where they get basically a percentage of how we do. There's no fee up front on anything, and so in the long term, in theory, if we do better, they do better, type of thing, and we may end up paying them more, but it's only if we do better that they end up doing better, type of a scenario. But a lot of rambling. Does everybody need a financial planner? If you think so, like, what should they look for? How to best go about that to find the right person? Or any other misconceptions, because obviously the finance world is huge and becoming just bigger, as it seems, and when it'll ever stop. But I'll stop talking and let you answer now.
No, that's good. So I'm going to come at it from a couple different angles, but
Perfect.
The first start is look at it as like athletic training, right? We get upset when personal trainers and, when we get called a trainer or personal trainer, like the titles, right? There's so many different titles in the financial industry. And one of the most common you hear is financial coach. That tends to be a big one. Now, when you see that, a lot of times financial coaches aren't licensed.
Sure.
So they can basically do whatever they want. They're not held to any standard by FINRA, the SEC. And a lot of times they just charge, for coaching, mentoring. They set a fee per session, and, you're paying out of pocket for that. When you see financial, I'm a financial representative. And that just means I don't have all the licenses yet. I'm still working towards it.
Okay.
But on the flip side, I surround myself with this financial team. So between us, there's 5 of us that work together on a regular basis. We have everything we have a guy on our team who could be a compliance officer. We have another guy who's a CPA, but now he's also Series 7, Series 65, does investments. We have an investment specialist, disability insurance specialist. So I don't pretend that I know everything. And it's like an athletic trainer. Athlete comes to you, you assess it, and you're like, all right, we need to see a specialist now for your injury. You're going to go see the knee specialist. They go, and then you come back and, you're working with them. And that's how we built our team. So in any aspect, I'm more of the, let's assess the situation. Let's get organized. Let's document. And now, hey, I'm going to introduce you to the specialist, and let's see what they can offer us, right, to build it out. When it comes to the fees and expenses, I always laugh too with athletic trainers, because we always, we want to get paid for our services, right? And we provide value. Well, it's the same thing with financial representatives, advisors. We're providing you a value, the education. And where now, again, I'm with an independent firm. So I'm brokered with 35 different companies, investment size. I can go, we have our investment team uses several different companies. So we can really say, all right, what's the best for the client? What do they need? We're not held captive. And actually, when I started, I worked for a captive company where I was only really encouraged to sell one type of product. And at that point, I felt like a salesman, that I wasn't providing value. So by going this route, it's, hey, I can serve. It doesn't matter to me where I place the business. The industry is so regulated that the costs behind the scenes are kind of set in place. It's, hey, this insurance product, this is the commission on it, this investment strategy, it's, there's basis points, but we don't have any say in that. It's basically the companies behind the scenes say, this is what is the expense. And we're always fully transparent with our clients on that. It's, here's the product, this is what's going to do for you, these are the expense costs, and this is how it breaks down. And there's a lot of people, like, you hear 1%, or maybe it's 1.2%, whatever you're paying on it, but that money goes to us that are on the account. It goes to our firm. It goes to the resources. So that 1%, like we might be bringing home 0.2%. Like it's
Sure.
at the end of the day. So it gets divided a lot of different ways for all the behind the scenes, all the paper processing and the software programs that we have to use. And so there's a lot of costs behind the scenes that people don't even realize is going on. But as the end user, you're like, oh, okay, this is my expense cost, my expense ratio. And also ask for breakpoints. You know, if you have so much business with one company, a lot of times it's usually on $500,000 increments. It's pretty big, but it starts to drop on your expense costs just because you have more money there within that institution working. They can drop your expense costs down a little bit.
Sounds like a good problem to have.
Yeah,
We're going to work towards that one.
there you go.
Anything else we haven't really covered within the financial realm, especially as it relates to athletic trainers, that you'd like to talk about?
The one thing I forgot to mention when we're talking about savings and
Sure.
kind of what is the right amount. If you're having a hard time starting to get savings, again, break it down. I use this example. If I say, hey, Joel, dude, I'm sorry, I forgot my wallet at home. Do you have $5 I can borrow? Would you lend me $5 today? And if I said, I pay you back.
Probably, yeah.
All right. So do that to yourself on the savings. It's, hey, my savings it needs $5 a day. I'm just going to put that away. I'm going to get it back at some point. It's there. It's going to be there for when I need it. And, you know, ideally we want to save about 15 to 20% of our income because you can control your savings rate. You can't control rate of return, what the stock market's doing, things like that. The only thing that you can really control is how much you save. And by saving that amount and then redirecting it to the appropriate buckets, going back to that, prior discussion, now you can decide where you want to pull from. And a lot of times when, you first hear 15, 20%, people are like, I can't do that. I'm living paycheck to paycheck as it is. I don't have that.
Right.
Start small. Another tactic I personally used to get going was, all right, I'm getting serious about my finances. I work 8 hours a day. What is my hourly rate? And that sounds like $35. I'm taking 1 hour of my day. Today I work 8 hours. 1 hour is going for my tomorrows. The other 7 hours, I'm going to pay myself that. I can use that today to live, pay my debts, and, go out to dinner, whatever. And I physically every day made a physical transfer, $35, and it built the habit. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I can do $40. Oh, I can, and you shift your lifestyle changes a little bit without realizing it, without putting yourself on a financial diet. And you gradually just, your body becomes conditioned, your lifestyle becomes conditioned to it. And all of a sudden it's easier and you can increase it. Then you get a pay raise and you're like, well, I can now direct those dollars. I don't really need that. I'm happy.
Sure.
My life's meet my needs. So
I like that. That's a good mind kind of shift with it. I hadn't thought of that one before. I like that one a lot. So thank you for sharing.
Take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. If nothing else, then we'll jump into the athletic training chat questions, if that sounds good to you.
Let's go.
So the first one is, where do you see athletic training going in the next 5 to 10 years? And if you, from the financial side, if you've got kind of a unique lens and want to focus on that, I'd be curious as to your thoughts there.
Yeah, seeing a lot more private practice starting to open up and opportunities for athletic trainers to start their own business. I see a lot of athletic trainers taking that leap and starting their own business, own companies. The virtual side of, I think COVID brought it to our attention pretty quickly, but how can we leverage our services and be in a virtual format? And unfortunately, there's going to be, I'm fearful that there's going to be a supply shortage of athletic trainers. I think we're already starting to see that, just the number of job postings and the low pay. But on the flip side, it's supply and demand. So hopefully is going to take that dip, but hopefully we see better pays because there will be more of a demand. Hopefully the schools, the industrial setting, these other institutions say, hey, you know what, there is value there. We need it, and we're willing to pay more.
Totally agree, because I don't know who else you're going to have fill those roles and be able to provide the same thing. And I feel like the way the world is, less isn't going to be an option. There's just too much risk without it.
Yeah.
What advice would you go back and give yourself as a young athletic trainer when it came to financial management? And as you told us, went through a couple things that you learned a lot from.
Yeah, stay educated. I would have learned and tried to soak up as much information as I could. Not be scared to have a conversation and not be embarrassed to reach out to people. We all come from usually our parents or upbringing, guardians. That's where we learn finances from. And if we don't talk about it on the home front, I came from a middle class family. Mom was a teacher, dad was a contractor. So financially, we were okay, but we didn't really talk about it. And so when I was going into it, I was like, all right, I just got to figure it out. I'll just figure it out on the way. Didn't have the conversations, and also have to be mindful that there's generation gaps, right? What worked for my parents doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for me, just because times have changed. My parents didn't have a $140 cell phone bill every month to worry about. That we, with technology advances, and there's so many different ways we're spending money now than what they did. Pensions and that secure income or kind of thing of the past. So it's having conversations. Don't be again embarrassed to reach out to a professional and a specialist in the industry. As healthcare providers, we rely on specialists, and that's why we have jobs. People come to us when they're hurt. So on the flip side, financially, if you're hurt, find a provider.
Kind of a side question from that one. Any resources that and this is kind of the next question, but I'll leave it for as it is. When you said, you would have gone back and tried to learn or soak up more, have you come across anything that would be like what you would consider a good starter place, book, website, anything like that somebody, if they're just like, man, I really need to start looking into this, that you would recommend?
Yeah. So, there's entertainers out there that provide some good information. You have like Dave Ramsey. I think, he has good information. There's also information that he provides that I don't necessarily agree with. I don't think, again, you just have to be mindful that they're speaking to the masses. So it doesn't always necessarily apply to you individually. And then on the flip side, there's a David McKnight is an author. I like a lot of his information, and he published, it's called The Power of Zero. And it's really looking at how to position your money into tax-free buckets. And what's funny is when you have Dave Ramsey, who says never do whole life insurance, but then you have David McKnight saying to get to the power of zero, cash value life insurance has to be one of the pieces of the puzzle. And so there's conflicting information. You have specialists out there, and one says yes, one says no. It's like, well, what do I do?
Sure.
And that's where you go. There's a lot of good apps and tools. We use what's called the living balance sheet to help our clients get organized. But if even an Excel spreadsheet, to document and track and put it on paper. But nowadays there's you have Every Dollar, Mint. There's all different types of apps. So it's like, find something that works for you.
Sure.
That you're comfortable using and that you're disciplined enough to use. That's the other trick of it.
Yep.
Be disciplined.
Yep.
But yeah.
So then the next question is what has been the most influential resource you found in your career?
Ooh. It's networking, to be honest, and other professionals.
Yep.
I've met so many awesome, to your point, yes, like how much of my client base is athletic trainers, and I'm licensed now in 23 states. We're well over 150 athletic trainers that are clients.
That's awesome.
Have, you know, physicians. And so it's, I've met so many cool people, and just how we got introduced, you know, with Mike Kahn. You know, Mike and I go back, awesome guy. And it's like, hey, you know, let's just have conversations. Like, let's learn from each other. Let's provide it. And, you know, just through that camaraderie, the conversations, you pick up so much. And then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to research this a little bit more, you know, when you leave that conversation.
That's been a common one. Networking, as I think it should be for good influences. As a professional in your role in working with ATs, how could they better take care of their financials? What have you seen? And you probably have already answered this. I think I can answer it for you, but I'll let you do it.
Yeah. Understanding cash flow right from the start, protect their todays, and I'm a firm believer, protect your todays, become a world-class saver, prepare for life events, and then tackle debt. And, you know, if you put in that process, and again, break it down. And for some people, they're going to go through the steps fast. Other people, it may take a while based on where they're at. But stay disciplined, stay organized, and again, don't be afraid to reach out for a conversation.
Again, may have already answered this question, but we're going to ask it anyway. So if you could change one thing in the profession of athletic training, I'd say even for the profession or as it relates to finances, what would it be?
I would love to see athletic trainers get paid what we're worth. I know we work so hard. We have so much talent. We're motivated. We're disciplined. We have, I think, in general, good hearts. You know, we want to help people, and we can save companies. We can save schools. We can save athletes money. Save them time going to, you know, unnecessary appointments that you know can be treated outside of it. So I think there's a lot of value. We have to continue being advocates, just for the profession, for ourselves. And I know a lot of times the hardest part is, where does that money come from? And I've been there as an athletic director, as a sports medicine supervisor. I wanted to pay my athletic trainers, you know, top dollar compared to everyone else.
Right.
But there's limitations. You know, there's the hurdles with budgets, and you know where the hospital system, the school, where their money's tied up at. So we have to be, you know, again, disciplined in our advocacy for the program. Any opportunity that there is to provide the education, and continue just building relationships and having conversations with key stakeholders. You know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just, you know, popping in, saying hi, write them a quick thank you for what they do. And it, over time, by building the trust, building relationships, it's just going to open up more and more opportunities to spread our message, to allow us to explain or express our concerns and what we would like.
I like that. Well said. What does serving athletic trainers mean to you? And if you want to end also on that, what does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
Again, for me, it's about helping and serving others, first and foremost, and enhancing the experience. When I was working in the trenches as an athletic trainer, all I want to do is enhance the experience for the athlete, for the coaches, for the parents. And even now, I still do durable medical equipment fitting on the side, and it's just give the patient the best experience possible. And I drew a blank. What was the first part of that question?
Just what does serving athletic trainers mean to you in now your role?
Yeah, and being a resource. You know, that's my role now. I want to just let you know that here's a resource conversation. I'm not in my team, regardless of who you speak of, we're not going to be calling you every day, you know, hounding you. It's have a conversation. This is what we can provide you. And at that point, it's up to you if you would like to implement all, some, none of anything that we observe or recommend. But just know that the resources are out there and available to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I know it opened my eyes to more things, and so I'll be having more conversations from that. But if people wanted to follow you, connect with you, what would be the best way for them to go about doing that? And we'll link all this up.
Yeah. So our website is www.ipgphilly.com, and you can go in there, just type "start a conversation," and there's some little things with living balance sheets and tools and resources that we have available. Also shows some of our association alliances. We are doing work with the Pennsylvania Athletic Trainer Society. I'm presenting out in Tennessee at their symposium in March.
Nice.
We're doing stuff with the University of Pittsburgh in March. And we're also doing a seminar series with Maryland athletic trainers, the young professionals.
Awesome.
So, if you're in any of those states or going to be attending any of those conferences, maybe we'll see you there. Facebook, it's called Financial Statements, capital AT in Statements. And again, I just wanted to create a platform for athletic trainers to go, and if they have financial related questions, whether it's being a business owner, questions that they have financially related to the industry, feel free to start a conversation. And my cell phone number, again, very transparent on this stuff, but my cell phone's 215-595-7132. And you can always just give me a call or shoot me a text.
All right. Well, we will put all of that in there. I just want to thank you again. This was very insightful. Glad we got to make this happen, and look forward to maybe having a follow-up sometime in the future.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Joel. And if there's any other opportunities or a specific topic your audience wants to listen to, happy to set it up.
Perfect. That sounds great.
All right, man.
Once again, thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Find more information at athletictrainingchat.com. Check out the Athletic Training Daily Journal 14-day sample. You use promo code ATDJ14 to get it for free. No payment method required to check that out. And again, thank you to Mueller Sports Medicine for helping this podcast get up and go. If you're interested in being on the podcast, let us know. We'd love to hear your story, and for your time, we'll hook you up with an AT chat and Mueller t-shirt to show that you were on the podcast and that we got to hear and share your story. So again, thank you, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the next episode.